While the world fixates on North Korea's troop deployments to Russia, there's one critical factor 99% of people are completely missing: the birth of history's most sophisticated commodities cartel, disguised as military cooperation. The real story isn't about soldiers. It's about strategic materials that will reshape global power for the next decade. The signal everyone missed: tungsten's silent surge on July 11, 2025. Tungsten prices hit historic highs, surging 23% year-to-date to reach 176,500 yuan per ton won. Copper markets are bracing for shortages, with Goldman Sachs forecasting $10,160 per ton averages for 20252. Most analysts attribute this to supply chain disruptions and green energy demand. They're looking in entirely the wrong direction. The real driver isn't solar panels or electric vehicles. It's the emergence of North Korea as the world's most strategically positioned ammunition factory, consuming massive quantities of tungsten for armor-piercing cores and copper for shell casings. North Korea has supplied Russia with 12 million rounds of 152mm artillery shells, each requiring precise tungsten and copper components. But this is just the beginning of a much larger transformation. The perspective 99% of people are missing North Korea, from pariah to commodities powerhouse, while mainstream media focuses on the 30,000 North Korean troops heading to Ukraine for. The real story is North Korea's metamorphosis into a strategic commodities processing hub. Kim Jong-un isn't just selling ammunition. He's building the foundation for a parallel global economy that bypasses Western financial systems entirely. North Korea's arms exports to Russia are estimated between $1.7 billion and $5.50 billion. But these figures dramatically undervalue the true strategic exchange. Russia isn't just buying bullets. It's investing in North Korea's industrial infrastructure to create a long-term strategic materials pipeline that could supply conflicts for decades. The arsenal economics few understand: North Korea's ammunition factories are operating at unprecedented capacity, producing artillery shells at 4 times their annual average 6. But here's what no one is calculating. Each 152mm shell requires approximately 2.3 kilograms of copper and 0.8 kilograms of tungsten. With 12 million shells supplied, that's 27,600 tons of copper and 9,600 tons of tungsten flowing through North Korean supply chains. This isn't just military production. It's the creation of a shadow commodities market that operates outside traditional pricing mechanisms and sanctions regimes. North Korea has become the world's most efficient converter of raw materials into strategic leverage. The silent winners, who's really profiting: China. The unexpected loser. The most shocking development is China's diminishing influence over both Russia and North Korea. For decades, Beijing controlled both regimes through energy and food dependencies. Russia's direct petroleum shipments to North Korea and technological transfers are systematically dismantling China's traditional leverage mechanisms. Chinese leaders are watching their carefully constructed containment boxes for Putin and Kim Jong-un disintegrate in real time. The Russia-North Korea partnership represents China's first major geopolitical miscalculation in decades. They've lost control of their most important client states, the real beneficiaries, strategic materials traders, while everyone focuses on military implications. A select group of commodities traders and mining companies are positioning themselves for unprecedented profits. Tungsten prices haven't just risen 23%. They're entering a structural shortage that could last years. Companies with tungsten mining operations outside China are experiencing windfalls. North Korea's consumption of strategic materials for ammunition production is creating artificial scarcity that benefits every other supplier globally. The North Korea premium is now built into tungsten and copper pricing, even though most market participants don't realize it. Defense contractors, The indirect winners, Western defense companies, are experiencing their most profitable period since World War II. Not from direct sales, but from the global arms race North Korea's involvement has triggered. South Korea has expanded arms exports to 12 countries, doubling weapons systems types from 6 to 128. Japan and NATO allies are accelerating defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2059. Every North Korean shell fired in Ukraine generates demand for countermeasures, early warning systems, and defensive technologies across multiple continents. The multiplication effect is staggering. $1 of North Korean ammunition generates approximately $15 in global defense spending. What no one dares to acknowledge. The timing is everything. Why July 2025? The perfect storm convergence. The massive escalation in North Korea-Russia cooperation isn't coincidental. It's precisely timed to exploit three converging factors: Trump's return and policy uncertainty. The second Trump administration's unpredictable foreign policy creates strategic windows for authoritarian partnerships. North Korea and Russia are moving aggressively, while Western alliance cohesion remains uncertain. 9. Strategic materials shortage. Global tungsten and rare earth supply chains are already stressed from green energy transitions. North Korea's entry as a major consumer creates immediate scarcity. Premium pricing. 10. Chinese economic vulnerability. China's economic growth concerns make Beijing less willing to enforce sanctions on North Korea, creating space for the Russia-North Korea axis to expand without Chinese interference. The historical pattern no one recognizes. This partnership mirrors the Trans-Siberian logistics dynamics of World War II, but in reverse. Instead of Soviet resources flowing west to defeat Germany, North Korean materials and manpower are flowing west to sustain Russia's war effort. But unlike World War II, this logistics chain is designed to be permanent, not temporary. The historical precedent suggests this cooperation will outlast the Ukraine conflict by decades. North Korea is building industrial capacity that will serve Russian strategic needs long after any ceasefire. This isn't wartime cooperation. It's the foundation of a parallel economic bloc. When we flip the lens, the complete picture, only outsiders can see. The commodities cartel disguised as military alliance. North Korea and Russia aren't just military partners. They're creating history's first state-sponsored commodities manipulation scheme. By controlling both production, North Korea's manufacturing, and consumption, Russia's war machine, they can artificially influence global tungsten, copper, and steel pricing. This represents a fundamental challenge to commodity markets that operate on assumptions of competitive pricing and transparent supply chains. The North Korea-Russia axis can manufacture shortages, create price spikes, and generate revenue streams entirely outside traditional market mechanisms. The technology transfer, nobody's watching while experts focus on missile technology transfers to North Korea. The real transformation is in industrial automation and mining technology. Russia is helping North Korea modernize its extractive industries to increase raw material output. 11. This technology transfer will multiply North Korea's commodities production capacity over the next decade. North Korea possesses significant untapped mineral reserves, including rare earth elements essential for advanced electronics. Russian technology transfers could unlock these resources, creating a strategic materials powerhouse in East Asia that competes directly with Chinese dominance. The reality behind the information smokescreen, what the media deliberately ignores. Mainstream coverage emphasizes the military drama while systematically ignoring the economic fundamentals driving this partnership. North Korea's GDP has likely grown 15 to 20% annually since 2022 purely from arms exports, representing the fastest economic growth in the regime's history. This economic transformation is creating new stakeholder interests within North Korea that strongly favor continued cooperation with Russia. Kim Jong-un isn't just helping Putin. He's building domestic economic constituencies that will pressure for sustained partnership regardless of geopolitical changes. The infrastructure investment hidden in plain sight Russia is deploying 5,000 North Korean military construction workers to rebuild the Kursk Region 12. This isn't just reconstruction. It's infrastructure investment that creates permanent economic linkages between the two countries. These workers are building roads, railways, and industrial facilities that will facilitate trade for decades. The construction projects represent Russia's long-term commitment to integrating North Korea into its economic sphere. This infrastructure will outlast current leadership in both countries, creating structural incentives for continued cooperation. Future shock. The 50-year perspective, if this analysis proves correct by 2030, North Korea will emerge as East Asia's primary strategic materials processor, challenging Chinese dominance in critical supply chains. The Russia-North Korea axis will control approximately 30% of global tungsten production and 15% of artillery-grade steel manufacturing. Western allies will face a permanent commodities cartel that can manipulate pricing for strategic materials essential to defense industries. This will force a fundamental restructuring of NATO supply chains and accelerate efforts to develop alternative sources. The next strategic move in this 10-move chess game, North Korea will begin exporting its dual-use industrial capacity to other authoritarian regimes, particularly in Africa and the Middle East. 13. By 2027, North Korean-built ammunition factories will be operating in Syria, Iran, and potentially Sudan, creating a global network of strategic materials production facilities. This expansion will transform regional conflicts worldwide by ensuring sustained ammunition supplies for any regime willing to partner with the North Korea-Russia axis. Local conflicts will become more prolonged and destructive as ammunition scarcity, traditionally a limiting factor in warfare, disappears. The consequences no one is predicting. The most significant long-term impact will be the emergence of competing global economic systems. The North Korea-Russia partnership represents the first successful attempt to create a parallel trade network that operates entirely outside Western financial infrastructure. Other authoritarian regimes will study this model and implement similar arrangements, gradually creating an alternative global economy based on barter trade and strategic materials exchange rather than dollar-denominated transactions. The shocking truth: they're hiding the $50 billion question. North Korea's total economic transformation through Russian partnership could generate over $50 billion in revenue by 2030, completely restructuring the regime's economic foundation. This represents the largest wealth transfer to an authoritarian regime in modern history, funded indirectly by Western nations through their response to global conflicts. Every time NATO countries increase defense spending to counter North Korean-supplied threats, they're indirectly funding the expansion of the very system they're trying to contain. The strategic irony is profound. Western defense expenditures are financing their own strategic competitors. What happens when the music stops when the Ukraine conflict eventually ends? North Korea will possess industrial capacity far exceeding its domestic needs and a proven track record as a reliable strategic materials supplier. This excess capacity will be available for export to any regime willing to pay premium prices for ammunition and strategic materials. The geopolitical implications are staggering. North Korea will have the ability to sustain conflicts anywhere in the world simply by providing ammunition supplies. Regional power balances that have remained stable for decades could shift rapidly as authoritarian regimes gain access to unlimited ammunition supplies. The most chilling prospect: North Korea's transformation from isolated pariah to indispensable strategic partner will inspire other isolated regimes to pursue similar strategies. The success of the North Korea-Russia model could trigger a global race among authoritarian states to become indispensable to major powers through strategic materials production. This isn't just about one conflict or one partnership. It's about the emergence of a new form of state capitalism based on strategic materials control, rather than traditional economic metrics. The world is witnessing the birth of the first post-sanctions economy, and most observers are too focused on military headlines to recognize the profound economic transformation occurring beneath the surface.